Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Christine Mint's Business. And today I am not on my own. I have a wonderful, super wise guest with me. And this is Jenna O. I'm just going to call you Jenna O because you have a little bit of an exotic surname. And I'm probably going to butcher it. So we're going to go with Jenna O.
Sure.
And she is a marketing expert and Pinterest specialist for online coaches, course creators and service providers. She started working online in 2016 as a virtual assistant. And upon discovering that a client was leveraging Pinterest to get leads and sell her services, Jenna went all in on the platform. She has since developed a specialization in Pinterest marketing for lead generation, and now she helps her clients and students automate list growth so they can automate a steady stream of target leads for their courses and programs and set themselves up for a long-term business success. And yes, she does that with Pinterest. She's on a mission to spread the word. When set up properly, Pinterest can attract soulmate clients with a small investment of time each month. So I am really excited to chat to Jenna today because we have been using Pinterest quite successfully with Sleep Like a Boss for 6 to 8 months, I'd say. It was never on our radar because, like most of you out there, we are bombarded at the moment with Instagram, I guess is considered the really hot platform. When we started out, it was Facebook. And then some of you are doing Twitter. That was never, in Europe, Twitter is a lot less than in the US, so it was never my game. But I feel Pinterest was always this thing, but mainly, let's put it for decoration or arts and crafts or the latest brownie recipes. So we were really, really surprised when we saw how much traction we got on on Pinterest and how much we got click-throughs through Pinterest. So I really believe that Pinterest is an amazing, cheap alternative actually, because especially for health and wellness coaches, Facebook is very tricky. Right now we are in a pandemic as we're recording this, and you can see it even further that the health sector is not easy in Facebook. With Sleep Like a Boss for sleep, it was impossible to create ads. They were immediately blocked because it had the word sleep and Facebook connected that with sex. And so it was immediately banned. So I had to always complain and then they would allow it, but I never had a huge relevance score because they would just censor it basically. So with health, they are very, very fickly with that. So that has become a really, really expensive kind of funnel there. Instagram still works well, I believe, but Pinterest is just this little underdog, and I'm really, really excited to learn more about it. So about your journey, you started as a virtual assistant. Tell me a little bit about that aha moment when you realized there's a thing that could really work.
I think I had a moment where I had a shift in my thinking about Pinterest. And I really went from thinking of it as just a platform that is visual, that is for fun, to thinking about it as a potential, a place where coaches, service providers can get leads and clients. And that happened because I was working at the time, and I still am actually, with a woman who is actually, she's a kind of an advanced entrepreneur, and she's a coach. She also has courses, and she also is a high-level service provider. She also does some VIP service, high-level work. So she's all three. And I looked at her lead generation strategy as I was getting more and more into her business, and I was managing her Pinterest account for her. Back then it wasn't really managing. I was sort of just, helping her with it. And of course that's evolved. And I just realized that I learned that the vast majority of her website traffic, the vast majority of the leads that she was getting, the traffic to her lead magnets that were high converting lead magnets, all was coming from Pinterest. And to this day, it's still her number one lead generation source. It's still her number one traffic source. And for the clients that I work with and the students that I teach in my course, when they follow the process, essentially, it almost always becomes, Pinterest almost always exceeds and basically eclipses all of their other traffic sources. So it's very powerful. The main shift I think that people have to sort of make is starting to think of it rather than like social media, but think of it as the search engine that it is. And we can talk about that a little bit more, but it's a search and discovery platform.
Yes.
And I have a little bit to say about, what that's like and how you approach it as a search and discovery platform as opposed to like social media. So I teach people about that. And that's usually the first kind of shift that people need to make, or that aha moment that people have when they realize how powerful it can be for their business.
I totally agree. I'm a huge fan of free traffic, right? I mean, especially as a business coach, coaching people in the health and wellness sector, we don't always have the biggest budget when we start out, or we've burned all our money on some quick fixes that actually weren't quick fixes, and then you're broke. So, spending huge money on one Facebook ad to go to one webinar, I've done it and it never worked. Like it just hasn't. And if you look at the real pros, they have a huge budget to do it. So I always preach that content is number one, and PR, for me, PR and getting quoted on media outlets and so forth are great because they give you backlinks, and Google is always your number one referral. So Pinterest is very similar though, similar to YouTube. Haven't quite figured out YouTube yet, I have to say. I tried it, and we tried Pinterest and YouTube at the same time.
Ooh, okay.
Some kind of, optimizations. Pinterest won like by miles, so we decided to focus more on that. But I do absolutely believe, if you want to have success, you need to rank highly. People need to find you. And in order to do that, you need to create content so that you can be trusted. And the great ways to do that is to have people find you. So for me, it was always Google, but Pinterest and Google are actually really closely matched. So work us a little bit through that. Once people understand, okay, I need to do steady stream of content. And you have lots of tips on that on the blog, actually, or in my masterclass about that. But how does Pinterest help?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a huge proponent of content as well. I think content is just, it's the essence. It's our storefront. When we work online and we don't have a store where people are, walking in, we don't have foot traffic. Our content is kind of like our storefront. So it's really, really important. That being said, I also recognize that a lot of coaches and course creators and service provider types, and actually, let me back up a step. There are a lot of people who use Pinterest for business who aren't coaches and course creators and consultants. People like Etsy store sellers who make products, prolific food bloggers who are blogging every day or 4 or 5 times per week, and those people do great on Pinterest. I actually don't work with people like that. I only work with coaches and course creators and service providers. So everything I talk about is really thinking about us, coaches, course creators, service providers. So I recognize that, people in this field, we have clients that we're working with, we have other marketing channels that we're also working on. We aren't able to do Pinterest, every day of the week, 24/7. So I teach a very minimum viable Pinterest strategy, and that makes me a little different. And I have sometimes I have like some unpopular opinions about Pinterest, but the things that I talk about and teach work. But basically it's important to think of it as it's a search and discovery platform. And so the biggest mistake I think that people make is that they try to approach it like social media. They've had some success on Instagram. They've had some success on Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever social media they like. And they turn to Pinterest because they hear you can get clients there, and they believe that their ideal clients are on the platform, which is true. If you look at the stats, you have mostly women, you have women with more expendable income. And so they try to approach it like social media, and generally when you do that, it doesn't work that way. So unfortunately people fail, and then they think, oh, well, Pinterest doesn't work for my niche, or, it's not going to work for me for whatever reason. So, but getting back to the idea that it's a search and discovery platform, I think that's the best way to describe it. Pinterest actually calls itself a search and discovery platform. And I think that that's the first thing that you really need to be aware of. So number one, it's a search engine. And the amazing thing about that is that when you have a consistent Pinterest strategy in place, women who are searching for topics and things that are directly related to and exactly about the things that you teach about in your content, that you teach about in your free offers, and that you teach about in your paid offers, when women search those things, if you have this consistent strategy in place, they can find you and your content and your offers on Pinterest. So when you talk about how important content is, we only we create content, but we don't have to be, and I believe as coaches, course creators, service providers, we need to create high quality content, but I also think the quality is more important than quantity when it comes to content. And if you're creating cornerstone content and you're maybe blogging, I'd say once would be the minimum, twice, 3 times a month. Pinterest is one way that you can amplify that content and get it in front of more people. And because it's a search engine, you can get it in front of people, women who are actually already searching for the content that you've created. Yes. And that's amazing. That's so powerful. And it's so different than social media, where certainly you're making connections with people, but when you post something, probably, I mean, let's be real, the majority of people who find it aren't necessarily either interested in it or it's not the right time for them to be, taking action on it. Whereas on a search engine like Pinterest, like Google to some degree, and also honestly like YouTube as well, but that's another story. Yeah. When someone searches on a platform like that and they find your information, they're in that moment looking for the solutions that you offer, looking for that right then and there. So they're going to be a more action-taking audience, which is exciting. The second part of that real quick is that it's a search, not just a search engine, but a search and discovery platform. And so what's great, another piece of Pinterest that's so amazing is that people are on there, women are on there looking to discover and be inspired. They're looking for ideas about how to make their lives better, about how to make their businesses better. They are open-minded and they're open to taking action when they find the solutions that fit them and their lives and their businesses. And that paired with the fact that there's that timing piece where they're looking for your content and your particular keywords, if you will, at that moment, that's so powerful because they're in this mindset where they're looking for a solution and they're open to it.
Agreed.
So it makes that audience a very action-taking audience. Again, if you set it up correctly and you're connecting. If you're setting it up in a way that is strategic and getting in front of the right people. So that's the kind of the whole thing. So it's the search piece and the discovery piece put together that make it so powerful.
I agree. I mean, and that's why you have to, and I'm droning on and on about this, but you have to be crystal clear on who you are, what you do, and who you talk to. And it seems obvious, but so many people I talk to, they never really went through a proper... when I say branding, it's always a little bit of a dangerous word because a lot of people misunderstand what branding means, but basically really a process of discovering what your voice is, what your tone is, who you want to work with. The scary bit of niching down, which a lot of people don't want to do because they want to help everyone. And I talk more in detail about that on my blog as well, so we don't have to go into it here. But that is the key thing, because 100%. Just as precise as you are the people on Pinterest typing this in. And that's why I'm always saying, whatever blog post you write, the title has to be, I say Googleable or Pinterestable, it doesn't matter, but it needs to be a sentence that is in the words of the person who's literally just spontaneously sitting down and typing it in. And so that is something that I find works so well with Pinterest.
Yep, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And my clients and my students who are specific about who they want to be talking with and who they want to find their content, they are the ones that absolutely do the best on Pinterest. And it's interesting. So I can give you a little bit of an example of that. One of my clients who's a health coach is, she does help people lose weight. I mean, that's the fact of the matter. That's really what people are hoping to do when they find her. And she's an Indian American woman who, when she was growing up, she ate very spicy foods that her mom, prepared and that she learned to prepare as well.
I know who you're talking about. She's a friend of mine, actually.
No way, really? Oh, really? That's great.
Yeah.
And as she, when she, had her own family and wasn't cooking those foods anymore, she noticed her body was changing and that she wasn't feeling the same way. And so she reincorporated all of those very spicy foods back into her diet, and everything changed for her. And she's, her, she's amazing, and she's, looks gorgeous.
Yeah.
She, her body is like incredible. It's like just amazing. And she's the sweetest, most, amazing person too. Just like beautiful on the inside and the outside. But anyway, so when we were setting up her Pinterest profile, we don't necessarily want to just get in front of women who are searching how to lose weight. I mean, certainly that's great, but the more action-taking audience for her are going to be the people who are searching for things around increasing metabolism and decreasing inflammation and learning to de-bloat. And if they're searching for things like turmeric recipes and spicy fat-burning food, or do spices really burn fat, things like that, that's going to be a more action-taking audience for her than someone who just is, Googling or Pinteresting, how to lose weight. Because if she gets her information in front of someone who wants to lose weight and resonates with her, but they really just want to eat salads with some chicken on them, and they're not interested in spicy foods, and they're not interested in cooking at home, then those people might get on her email list. But first of all, they may never even click through to her content. But then even if they do click through and get on her email list, they may not take action on her offers because they're going to be like, well, I don't really like spicy food, So that's an example of getting niched and getting specific, and how that works for someone on Pinterest, just like it works in the Google,
Exactly.
ecosystem.
And I think that's also what you need to be smart in terms of looking at what else people might have in their orbit right now. So for sleep, it was pretty easy because I had a board with, or we still have actually, a board with bedroom environment, right? So we even have interior design for bedroom. And the thing is, if people click through and get to the profile, they see all these different boards, and then they might also see, oh, she actually also deals with insomnia. How handy, or here are the top 10 mattresses or whatever, So it's really the way that you should build your content anyway, that it makes sense, that there's some strategy behind it instead of just throwing stuff out there. Your Pinterest is similar, I feel, in terms of strategy, that everything is somehow connected. So if someone lands there, you can guide them, and either they stick around or not, and that's totally fine. But I think that's a little bit like the spider web that you want to get them in.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Another great example, I work with an online dating coach, and, we know her clients love fashion, but we don't want to just have a board that's like, fashion or, style for, whatever. So what we did is we made a date night outfit board. So she pins fashion stuff there, but it's all about date night. So if someone's searching for date night outfits and they find her information, and then they like one of the pins on the board, then the way Pinterest works, and this is kind of advanced, but is the next day, Pinterest might show them other pins from other boards of hers in their feed. And maybe that pin is, how to optimize your online dating profile. And she's like, oh, wow, yeah, I would like to do that because I just got these hot new date night outfits. And, I want to, maybe that's the timing right now. People probably aren't going on too many hot dates right now with the pandemic happening. But so basically she, she's getting in front of them with things that they're interested in, but the things that are directly related to and directly adjacent to, if you will, the things that she teaches about.
Brilliant. So I think we've covered a little bit why Pinterest works. It's very simple. It really does. It's a search and discovery engine. Now let's get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty and just without overwhelming people. So let's say we have someone now who's like, okay, I really want to try this. Now, both of us, we are fans because it doesn't take a huge budget to create traction on Pinterest. It's never immediate, let's be very frank, but I think after 3 to 6 months of consistency, you can definitely, we saw after 3 months, we definitely saw results. It was incredible.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
So I think people know what Pinterest is. They kind of know what a pin is, but what are some best practices? So let's say I am a health coach and I have my niche down. So I'm now creating a blog post. And I want to make sure that it's found on Pinterest. What are the maybe 5 steps that you should keep in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. The framework that I teach about and like to think about Pinterest in is that, first of all, that there are like 3 phases of your Pinterest marketing strategy as a coach. The first phase is the strategic setup. And that's where you're doing a lot of the legwork. You're putting in a lot of time and energy in the beginning and clarifying your strategy and getting things set up strategically. The second phase is where you are just really doing the dang thing. You put your, really, you've in phase one of the things that you've done, and I can go back and kind of talk about this, but is create a workflow for yourself so that every month you know exactly what you need to do for Pinterest. I teach a system that takes 4 to 6 hours per month of your time, and you can do it all in one sitting. You can sit down for half a day, do everything that you need to for your Pinterest for that month. and then set it and forget it until the next month, and then do it again 30 days later. So phase 2 is where you have to have that patience and that faith in your strategy and see that strategy through and just do it. So you're just doing your workflow every single month. And I think you're right about that 3 to 6 month time frame. That's really where people start to really see that traction and go, oh, this is really going to work for me. But not everybody makes it to that 3 to 6 month mark, because you have to have a little faith. It's just the way Pinterest works. It takes time for the algorithm to understand what you're pinning about, for your website to have some domain authority with Pinterest, that kind of thing. Okay. And then in phase 3, eventually you can get to the point where you can say, okay, now you have like a critical mass of data. You can look at your analytics in very simple ways and just say, okay, now I can look back and say, okay, what worked for me? Which topics are performing the best on Pinterest? Which style of Pinterest pin even? Are my pink pins doing better? Are my white pins doing better? Whatever, like the minimalist look, the more. So it's like you can optimize at that point. Getting back to the beginning, because that's, I think, where most people are when they first, usually hear about Pinterest for coaches. With that first phase, that setup, the strategic setup phase, there really are I consider sort of 3 steps in that phase. The first one is the keyword optimization and the keyword research. And when people hear me say that, sometimes I see them go, oh.
Yeah, it's like zero blazing eyes.
Like,
it's
really?
like tuned out, babe.
Yeah, like
these people. Listen, like right.
Right.
Takes 2 seconds.
yeah. So, and I know, because people really, especially people who are coaches who are coming over from a social media, especially Instagram, because Instagram and Pinterest are, from the outsider's perspective, they can look similar, but they couldn't be more different in terms of strategy. I mean, they're both filled with beautiful images, and we love that about them, but that's where the similarities end. Yeah. So when almost without fail, when clients and course students come to me and they have started Pinterest, the reason why they started and didn't gain traction is because they jumped right into the visuals. They started pinning. And step 1 of that setup phase is really your keyword piece. So you need to, like we talked about earlier, get clear on who you want to be in front of. Brainstorm a list of what you think that person might be searching for around your topics, which does take some clarity. And that's why it's important for people to gain some clarity about who their ideal client is before jumping into really any marketing strategy, right? But certainly this one.
And I'm shamelessly plugging in a little promo here to my first masterclass, which is just about branding and niching. You should definitely look into that, because that's why I walk you through that. Promo over. Okay, back to you.
So you cover, do you cover like messaging essentially in that, like who your ideal client is and how to
ideal client, niching, what branding is, taglines, the whole thing.
Yeah. Cool. One of the things, just a little bit of a tangent on that. One of the things I think is such an interesting part of that is thinking about meeting your client where they are and thinking about what it is that they believe their problem is, and messaging around what they think their problem is, not what their problem is. Not those underlying
they have no
problems.
clue.
Right.
Yes, and especially in the health sector, we are a little bit damaged when we graduate, in air quotes, because we've just been bombarded with all this lingo, that health-based lingo, which our clients would never use, never. Yes. So it takes a little bit of deprogramming to find normal language again, instead of health coach jargon. Let's put it that way.
And you absolutely have to be able to find that normal language in your messaging in order to be able to target people on Pinterest, because people are just everyday people searching for solutions to their problems, and they're searching for the solutions to the problems that they believe they have, not the ones that you think they might have that are underlying. So, but getting back to keywords, so getting clear on that, brainstorming a list of what you think they're searching for, making sure that really is what you think, they're searching for, not what you think they should be searching for. And then doing keyword research on the Pinterest application itself, like actually doing keyword research in Pinterest, finding out what keywords are being searched around the topics that you teach about and help with. And that's important too, because if you create content and use keywords on your profile that no one's searching for, then you're not going to get discovered.
Nobody's going to find you. Exactly.
Right. And then incorporating those keywords into 6 areas of your profile. There are 6 areas right now of your Pinterest profile where you can add keywords. And you basically there are different techniques to use in those different 6 areas. And you need to plug them in basically to those areas as that first step in the process.
Yeah. And I think that's what people sometimes don't even bother with. But if you go to Pinterest, you have your description, for example. That's primo real estate, people.
Right.
Even the way that you name your picture you can name your picture that you're going to upload. That's already SEO. Then you have each board has a description. So these are things that are really, really important. And I find a lot of us, we just hurry in there and we neglect how consistently these little spots are working for us.
Right. And not to harp on it too much, but the keywords are how you connect on Pinterest to your ideal action taking client.
Yeah.
That is, so they are literally key. They are, if you don't do the keyword piece, then the rest of your strategy will likely fail and you will have wasted time on the rest of the pieces. So it really is important to start with that keyword stuff. And so those 6 areas of your profile need keywords. And then once you've optimized optimized your profile, then you can turn to the visuals and work on things that are, like, your profile photo and actually adding pins that stop the scroll when people are going, scrolling through, and pins that send a very quick message about what your content is about, so that when someone is scrolling through, they'll see yours, they'll stop because they know it's for them. They know what you're trying to get across. The messaging really behind those visuals too. And then the third step of the setup is creating that workflow for yourself, and creating a workflow that is going to be easy to do every month, so that you can do that 4 to 6 hours of work every month and set it and forget it, and know that you are on the right path and have faith in it, so that you will be able to be consistent over time and be able to see those results. So I teach 4 pillars of Pinterest success. The first one is keywords. The second one is visuals that convert. The third one is consistency. And that's where that workflow comes in. And then the fourth one is time, because you do have to give it time. So consistency and time really kind of go together, because if you can be consistent over time, then it's like time is going to pass. So you might as well, do the work consistently that you set yourself up to do.
Because if you don't do anything, nothing will happen. So I totally agree. So I have 2 things to add on to this. Number one is a little resource that I really like to use, and hopefully is going to help you guys out there too. And it's called Answer the Public. You go to answerthepublic.com, and basically what you do, you type in your keywords, and usually it's 1 or 2 words, maybe 3. So let's say weight loss, right? And it will basically pull up all the different things that people type into Google or another all over search engine. And you will be surprised how differently people twist things. But this is literally where I copy paste the titles for my blog posts, or if I'm not inspired for a blog post, which doesn't happen now anymore because I have my strategy more in place, but sometimes it does happen, then you can just go there and you will see the questions that are asked and create a blog post based on demand, which is really, really powerful and will help with Pinterest as well.
Cool.
Other thing that I have is a question for you, actually, because we noticed that on Pinterest, you can have a scheduler. One of the most, I think there's probably several ones, but I know that one of the most popular ones is called Tailwind. And we saw that there's quite a big of a difference whether you manually go into Pinterest and interact, or whether you use scheduled only. Both work, still much better than anything else. But there was a huge discrepancy though, and it does take time. So my assistant for Pinterest is literally in there every day, taking 10 to 15 minutes and pinning and, following others and, engaging. And we really saw that there was a difference. Is that just in our heads, or is that true?
When you say engaging, do you mean commenting, liking? Or do you
not
mean
even commenting, but literally pinning on boards, following others, or taking pins and from other boards into our collection, like just what Tailwind would do automatically. When we do it manually, we just see that there's a lot more traction.
Interesting. So just to clarify for the audience, with Pinterest, when we say engage, you don't need to comment, you don't need to like other people's things. You don't need, you're not community building on Pinterest. You're growing an audience on Pinterest. And it's just, because I think when people hear engage, I just want to make sure. So here's the thing about that is that every once in a while I have heard of someone's account and they've tested it and they find that manual pinning seems to work better for their process and that they are getting better results. It's out of the ordinary for me to hear that. And typically I personally am a proponent of Tailwind because, again, I feel as though as a coach, course creator, service provider type, it's important to have a workflow where you can sit down for those 4 to 6 hours, schedule everything out.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely better than nothing. Right. Like, for sure. I mean, results were still astonishing. Like, they were still mind-blowing in comparison to anything else that I've ever tried. And I've tried it all, I have to say. So it's definitely worth it.
Okay, yeah. And in most niches, the majority of niches, and so I'm involved in like a Pinterest marketing mastermind with a guru in the industry. And so I'm constantly social listening and working with other Pinterest strategists and other people who are doing Pinterest. And almost across the board, people don't typically see a better result from manual pinning. Okay. And Pinterest has actually said, as an organization, that using Tailwind and manual pinning are not different, that their algorithm does not favor manual pinning or pinning directly on Pinterest over pinning through Tailwind or Buffer or whatever scheduling software you use. Whereas on Facebook, right, and Instagram, we know, especially on Facebook, that they don't like you using a third-party scheduler. No. But that's not the wisdom on Pinterest. On Pinterest, they have no problem. You know, they've said that their algorithm does not favor manual pinning.
All right, interesting.
That being said, it may not be in your head or imagining it, because I have occasionally heard people who do feel they get better results that way.
I mean, it's not just, we literally compare, because it's easy. Like, Pinterest is one of the easiest platforms to look at analytics. So you can well see what happened, but it's not, it wasn't over a time span of months. I'd say it was 3 or 4 weeks that we've compared, and it was interesting. So we'll still dive into that, but it's good to clarify for sure.
Yeah. And that's the other thing I was going to say, is that you really, in order to really know for sure if anything, including manual pinning versus automated pinning, is working more for you, you have to be doing it for probably at least a 2-year period, maybe a year. But this year I'd say 2 years, because we're in a very unprecedented time. And so what happens too is that there are certain topics that have a certain amount of seasonality. So it's hard to know for sure if your manual pinning is really what changed, or if the trends for those particular searches were going up and down, or if there were other factors that may have played into things.
That's true. I mean, everyone is at home pinning like crazy right now. So it's just like probably organic engagement that's gone up. Yeah.
I think that there are a lot of people who are having, trouble with health issues and who are spending more time on self-care as well right now. Mm-hmm. We know that. We actually know that just by looking at the Pinterest trends and seeing what people are searching. The terms like self-care checklist, like, shot through the roof. It's crazy. Along with working out at home and, certain topics that are around health coaching. Right around that, March date when the pandemic hit, when the NBA canceled their season, everyone was like, oh, this is real,
Yeah.
So there's that. And then also, because probably at least partially, if not mainly because of the pandemic, Pinterest experienced several weekends in a row that were its top pinning weekends ever. It just, and the record just kept going up and up. Like, every weekend blew the last weekend out of the water. So there was just more going on Pinterest. More people were searching and using Pinterest, and more people were searching for topics around self-care and health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's probably, I have to check.
That may have played into it. So anyway, not to get too far into the weeds with you on it, but I just want to throw that out there.
But it's an interesting fact that you need to keep in mind if you're looking at numbers and take decisions on that, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Seasonality. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I think this has been really, really helpful. And I think the main message is definitely that this is not a quick chat, follow, tribe, group kind of thing. It is different. Mm-hmm. I think it is very powerful in the long-term game, which everyone should be in for anyway. But there's a couple, as we discussed, I think we're very clear on, you have to be clear in your messaging and your niching. You have to be, to me, the second step is always that you have to be clear on your numbers and packaging, because when people start to find you, you need to be able to sell to them. And then it is a great, great tool, I find, for people who don't want to be as stressed on having to comment every day or having to post every day.
Yes.
You can batch it which is my favorite thing to do. I batch all my content all the time because I'm a lazy person and I don't want to do anything. So obviously, if you are like me and you know that you're not going to be the most consistent and that your zone of genius is not in figuring out Pinterest, then you can hire someone who does it for you, or you can learn it yourself if you think this is your jam, or if you're like me, I love to invest in courses and have my VA actually take the courses or my. So, Jaina, you have things like that. So tell us a little bit about your suite of products is that people right now are like super hungry, hopefully, to get in purchase.
My business is definitely, again, with I think things have, with the pandemic too, I think just a lot of people at home have more time to spend on their marketing and whatnot. So I've definitely had a big surge of people looking for Pinterest marketing help for sure. So I basically offer 3 different ways to learn about Pinterest and to get your Pinterest set up strategically to be able to generate leads and clients and to grow your audience. I do have a done for you service, and I do typically about one of those per month. I also offer a course so I've distilled all of my, everything that I do in that done for you offer, down into my, my course. And that's called Pinterest with Purpose. And it's been around, for about a year, and I update it regularly. It's basically just distills all the methods down so that you know step by step each step to take in that setup phase that I was talking about earlier, that phase 1 where you're setting things up strategically. So it demystifies everything, teaches you everything that you need to know about the strategy, and then shows you exactly step by step how to do the keyword research, how to create pins that convert, how to create that workflow, everything. So it's there, and it's called Pinterest with Purpose, and you can find it on my website. It's JanaOmedia.com. So it's JANAO media.com. I also do have a free resource that I would love to offer to anyone who just wants to kind of dip a toe in and find out whether Pinterest might be good for, for their niche and whether it's something that might work well for their marketing repertoire. So I mentioned earlier that with your keywording, once you have done your keyword research, you need to add those keywords to 6 areas of your profile. And so right now, if you go to my website, again, it's JanaOmedia.com, you can grab a swipe file that I have available for free. It's the 6 areas that you need to keyword in order to attract your ideal client on Pinterest. And it basically gives you kind of like Mad Lib style swipe copy for those 6 areas of your profile where you can add those keywords. So it tells you exactly how to write a bio, how to write the name of your profile, how to write pin descriptions, how to choose your board titles, because those are keyword optimized, need to be, how to write your board descriptions, and there's one other one. Right. Yeah, no, I'm not trying to withhold it. I just can't remember it right now.
It's a good trick. Anyway, it works.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I want to know.
Right. I'm sure it's there somewhere in my subconscious, but it's definitely on the cheat sheet. So it's a cheat sheet / swipe file, and it's free, and it's 6 pages long, and it just basically gives you examples of all of those different areas of your profile where you can add your keywords and shows you how to do it. So it's really easy to grab, and it's right there. Right now it's living on my homepage. But if anyone's listening to this in the future, it also lives at JanaOmedia.com /Pinterest keywords. And you can grab it there.
And we'll have that in the show notes as well as all of Jenna's social media platforms. I believe I asked for them, I'm pretty sure. Bear with me. No, I didn't. Why didn't I? Did I? No, I didn't.
I don't remember if I sent them to you.
Oh, no,
you just on my end too.
Your Instagram handle.
Okay. Yeah, and actually, my handle on really all social is the same. It's Jana
perfect.
O Media, so it makes it easy. It's Instagram, Jana O Media, Facebook, Jana O Media. Yep.
Perfect. So you will have all of that in the show notes if you go to the blog, and you'll find Jana's interview here. You can watch us, you can just listen to us, and you can read us, whatever suits you best. And go on and download that checklist. I'm definitely going to do that right now and send it to myself. I'm lazy.
Love it. Awesome.
But thank you so much for being on this episode and sharing all of this knowledge. I think I'm really excited about Pinterest right now.
Yes.
And it's a step that I really think is cheap. It does cost a little bit of time, but if you bootstrap, I think this is perfect.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Guys, we'll see each other in the next episode.
Bye.